Good morning, my friends. Brian here with VetteSource on the road today. Figured you guys could come along with me on another road trip. We're going to get out of the city here in just a second, and we're going to go grab ourselves a car up north. Out just north of Fort Worth is where I'm heading for today. So I've got about a 5-hour trip in front of me. Of course, I won't record the whole time, but I'm coming through downtown real quick here, Houston, trying to get out of the city. Once I get out of the city, excuse me, back out in the open country again, where I like to be. Now, for those of you that haven't watched me before, Houston, Texas, in this area is fairly straightforward. You've got one road running north to south, the major interstate highway here, 45 north, 45 south, basically the federal highway is what we call it here in the States. And this highway goes all the way from Galveston up to just north of Dallas, where it turns into 75, State Highway 75. So from Houston to Dallas, if you're driving fairly quickly, you can get there in a little over 4 hours. You know, even faster if you want to drive really, really fast and take the chance of the state troopers that like to patrol, but I don't bother because I'm, you know, always in a bigger truck and towing my trailer usually when I'm running around. So just to give you some scope, from Houston to Dallas, it's about a 4 to 5 hour trip to get up that way. So you can see we got downtown here in front of me, Houston, and we're trying to get through this traffic, get out of here, because even on a day like today is what, Monday? Yeah, today's Monday. It's rather busy here in the city. So I'm gonna sign off for the moment, and then I'll get back to you guys when I get back out into the countryside. So I'll check with you then. Alright guys, we've made our way out of the city, off into what we refer to, Texans usually, as a no man's land between Houston and Dallas. We're kind of passing, actually there's Huntsville State Park. I think I'm going to go there with the wife and kiddos next week, as a matter of fact, for a couple days. But anyway, we've made our way up into Huntsville, which is kind of the last largely populated city between Houston and Dallas. You got quite a few cities running through: Centerville, Madisonville, Corsicana, things like that. But for their long distance here, we've still got about 200 miles to Dallas from here. You've got quite a bit of open territory to drive through. It's not especially, you know, hilly or features to look at a lot, but it is interesting. You know, there's quite a bit there to get through, and lots of open space. It's actually quite pretty. Trees and everything are pretty abundant out here. Anytime you listen to somebody talk about the trees are going to disappear, just come to this part of Texas. I can tell you, we got more trees than we know what to do with out here. But you can see they're actually doing heavy work on the interstate here. It looks like they're widening actually to 3 lanes in each direction, which would be kind of cool, because for the longest time here in the United States, the interstate highway system is always 2 lanes each direction, with just a center divider to keep you from crashing into the other side, which doesn't work all the time, but it is a fairly unique system, and it's pretty robust. We have quite a few miles of it spanning the country, which makes it fairly easy to get back and forth to certain destinations, and it really makes America quite drivable if you're the kind of person who likes to drive. Now here is our southern entrance into Huntsville, Texas. This is a big giant statue of Sam Houston that they've had up here. God, I think they put that statue there like 20 years ago, so people will come and check it out. So Sam Houston, I seem to remember that I think he was the governor of Texas at one point, and when Texas had a problem with corruption in the mid-1830s, and he actually resigned as governor. I don't remember the whole story, but I do remember there was some kerfuffle about you know, people being treated bad, and government was really corrupt here in Texas, and he just flat out left, you know, had to run away, I think. But Huntsville itself is a nice little community. Unfortunately, it's got the distinction of being the location of executions in Texas for all our death row inmates. So, in fact, there's a prison museum, I don't know if you saw right there, where they actually keep some of the old remnants of, especially I think they got old Sparky in there. No, maybe old Sparky was Florida, but they keep an electric chair in there back from the day when they were doing electrocutions. This is actually, to my right there, that was a juvenile delinquent detention center right there. Huntsville actually has, I think, 3 or 4 prisons. I can't remember. They got the main prison downtown, which literally you go into downtown and there's just this huge prison. It takes up probably a couple of city blocks or more, and one portion of this prison is called the Death House, and that's where they bring the prisoners from death row, which is in Gatesville, which I think is a couple hundred miles from here. It's not close, and they bring them from Gatesville over here simply for the execution procedure. So it's interesting the way they got it set up. You know, it is what it is, whether you're for or against it. You know, it's too bad, because it's just that pall of this being the execution site always kind of hangs over Huntsville, and it otherwise it's kind of a really pretty area to be in. But yeah, so as we come through here, this is just, you know, the main drag through Huntsville. You go about these exits, it's like a lot of the interstate system in the United States. It bypassed a lot of the cities when they built this in the 50s. It started to bypass the cities, so you don't really see a whole lot of the city except for just the ones that are on the businesses on the roadside. So this will be our last city for another 15-20 miles till we get up into Centerville, Madisonville area, and I'll check back out with you guys in then. So we'll see you in a few minutes. Hang tight. Alright guys, we stopped here in Madisonville for a quick pit stop at a very popular spot here. If you have not heard of these gas stations here in Texas, this is Buc-ee's chain, and frankly they're ridiculous but they work. So they're overly sized convenience stores. This is a company that actually started out of Lake Jackson, is where they started at back in the 70s, but they started building these mega size gas stations way back when, and it's been about 10 years now, I think. And their big thing too was the cleanliness of their bathrooms, but you can see, I'm gonna drive by here, how big this place is and how ridiculously always busy it is. It's almost no fun to come here just because it's too busy. But anyway, it's a neat place. It's good for road trips. If you're ever in Texas driving through, you've got to stop at least and check it out, because they have a lot of very good overpriced stuff that you can take if you're a tourist. And you can see the amount of gas pumps they have here, which is silly. But of course we're in full force of mask wearing still down here, which has gotten to be kind of tedious. But yeah, so we're back out on 45. I'm about 147 miles from my destination. I got a little over 2 hours left to get to where I need to go, so that I can get everything loaded up. Hopefully this car will load pretty quickly, won't be too troublesome. And again, there's our Madisonville signage that you can see forever. But kind of a cool stop. So I'm gonna get back on the road again. Now I'm gonna get kind of into what I call the no man's land before we get into the outskirts of Dallas. So we got about 100 miles of nothing to go through. So I'll check back with you guys in a minute and show you some of the scenery. Be right back. All right guys, we are back on our open road portion of the trip, just north of Buffalo, Texas. If you guys are kind of looking at your map, we're at mile marker 180, I think, 181 up 45. So this is the area I'm talking about. We're about 108 miles out of Dallas right now, the Dallas proper. So you can kind of see the way, you know, Texas down south, we're kind of flat along the coastline. We don't get a lot of hilly areas. This for us is hills here until you get into central Texas, where we actually have some hill country over there. But you know, you do get some interesting geographical type you know, features here that we don't have down south, and it's just pretty rolling hill type country. Again, not much to look at, and it's like this for pretty much the next 80 miles going up through here. You can see we're coming up an incline, and you may be able to notice how much traffic is on the roads. I mean, it is 45 between Dallas and Houston is really a main corridor outside of I-10 West going to San Antonio, but there's a lot of commerce and trade coming back and forth between the two. You can actually see this road is pretty much owned by the truckers. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I can see 10 of them coming in my direction just now from the opposite side, and there's a couple of them actually behind me too. So it's definitely the truckers' highway. If you get on here, the speed limit is 75, but we jokingly refer to that as your recommended speed coming through here, because most people, I mean, I'm loafing along like at 70 right now, and I'm getting past like I'm standing still most of the time. So it's an interesting trip. You know, again, you know, where you got New England and the East Coast is really, really condensed, and you can get to certain places in within an hour. I think you can drive across 3 states in an hour up there between Delaware, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts. Here, you're basically driving all day to get across Texas. And don't even get me started about what it takes to get to El Paso from here, because that's quite funny. Interesting factoid, if you haven't ever traversed this before, we like to joke with people that come to visit in Houston. If you're going from Houston, Texas to Los Angeles, California, the halfway point is El Paso, Texas. I'm not kidding. So halfway to Los Angeles is El Paso. It's a little over 900 miles from El Paso to Houston. And yes, that is a drive. So, and it's all on one freeway, Interstate 10, going over there. So anyway, this is kind of, you know, our trek through Texas. I'm not going to keep this up too long, because I don't want to make this video like 5 hours long, and it'll take me forever to upload once I get back to YouTube. So anyway, just thought I'd give you guys a little taste of what it's like rolling through Central Texas here, and I will be back with you once I get this abandoned car picked up and show you what we discovered. So I'll check back in a little bit, guys. Okay, a little more of our open country vibe here on our road trip. We're now 40 or 50 miles north of Buffalo, so a little more of the open country here. Turned into a nice day, actually. Of course, we're getting further north, so the humidity is not that bad going this north when we get away from the coast. So it's actually a little more tolerable. To kind of get an idea here of our open expanses. God, I bet this was a pain in the butt to run this by horseback back in the 1800s. But anyway, I keep thinking of that because I was playing Red Dead Redemption recently with my younger son, who likes to play games, and I was amazed at the overall quality of the game. But then I was looking at the trails they were running through the game from town to town. I thought, well, that must have been a miserable existence, having to ride my horse everywhere. But you can see a lot of, you know, we get these natural hardwood trees out here that pretty much grow everywhere naturally. If you don't trim back, everything's just going to keep growing around here. You can see they kind of even keep the interstate. I don't know, they may have cut back on their upkeep maintenance simply because of everything that's been going on lately over here. But basic trim and wild, because this is a lot of open country to have to keep up with mowing wise. And each county in Texas keeps up, I think the way it works, they keep up with their own section of the interstate. TxDOT, which is Texas Department of Transportation, keeps up with overall, I think, administration of the highway system through here. But then the individual counties keep up with their certain sections. So you will actually find markedly different conditions sometimes when you go even from county to county, much like you do when you leave Texas and you go into Arkansas. You know immediately the moment you left Texas for Arkansas or Louisiana for that matter, because the roads are completely different over there. Texas actually does a pretty good job at keeping their infrastructure up. And if I have time later tonight on my way back, I'll show you guys what a Texas rest stop looks like. That's another thing Texas is well known for, in addition to those Buc-ee's convenience stores, is I think it was under Governor Perry, that he decided to blow a whole bunch of the state's budget on really nice rest stops, which again, considering how big the state is, I'm not saying that wasn't a comfort feature we could use, because our rest areas in Texas are really nice. It's kind of funny, you walk into them and they're like, I'll show you later when I get by. In fact, there's enough, they're well lit, and they're like little mini cabins. Not mini, but they're actually bigger than that. So I'll give you guys a taste of that later. But you know, looks like now I'm coming up on Wortham, which is another small city that you can't see from the roadway. We're at exit 213, so we've got another probably 50 miles before I get off this road. You can see the speed limit went down a little bit here, back down to 70. So this is definitely one of the better driving days for going through Texas. You know, weather's temperate. It's not overly crowded. It's busy, but it's not overly crowded, so it's not bad. So I'm going to sign off for now. Finally, I just wanted to come back. I saw this stretch and thought, oh yeah, here I am in Navarro. Now watch, see, I go into Navarro County and it's totally different. Did you notice that? So I'm 71 miles outside of Dennis. I'm 38 miles from Ennis. 71 from Dallas, 38 from Ennis, which is where I needed to go northwest at to get to Fort Worth. So I'll check back with you guys as I'm leaving town again, and we'll hook up on the return trip. Talk to you in a bit. Alright guys, back again with our abandoned car rescue and tow. Can't really take time out yet to show you what I picked up, but I'll get to it here in just a second. We're heading south out of Fort Worth now. Thought I'd give you a little bit of a peek and see of the city life, suburbs outside here. So if you're not familiar, Dallas, Fort Worth are interesting. They're two fairly large cities sitting right next to one another, with two pretty big downtowns. Dallas obviously has a bigger downtown than Fort Worth, but they actually both have fairly, you know, skyscraper type buildings. So it's interesting to see from different angles. You can see two different downtowns not very far away from each other. And of course, as much as I might complain about Houston traffic sometimes, it is a major royal pain in the butt to get anywhere around Dallas Fort Worth area, because it spans an even greater geographic area than Houston does. Houston's fairly compact by their standards. So what I'm doing now is traveling southeast out of Fort Worth, south of Interstate 20 on 287, going down towards Ennis, back to Ennis, Texas, where I came up, where I picked up this road. So everything went well. You know, car came up on the trailer like it's supposed to. Actually a pretty cool find, I have to admit. So when I get over later to a rest stop, I'll show you guys what I picked up. I think it's kind of neat. It's a neat one. Just you may have to be from my era to remember these, but definitely a cool car with a lot of cool features. So I'll be back with you guys in a second. Alright, just because it came up, I was going to show you guys. I wasn't going to get back to you this early, but you can kind of see some of the landscape here and the hilliness up north Texas here. We're actually going into Arlington right now, but it's kind of cool, rather expansive. Kind of see, I think that's a power plant off in the distance to the right there. I can't remember for certain. But you know, interesting topography. That looks like a fairly expensive neighborhood there to my right. The big mansions over there. Yeah, looks like a newer development. It better be high price for that big old tower in the front of it there. So anyway, kind of a neat topography we're going through here. We're traveling through, and this guy's stopping in the middle of the road. Okay. He just passed me a few minutes ago, hauling butt, so he must have had something come loose. Somerset. I'll have to look and see how much those private houses cost in there. That is a fancy entryway. So, kind of cool out here. Like I said, it's expansive and going into one lane. Okay, that's kind of weird. Oh, I see what it did. Okay, so Texas has these odd lane merges out here too for some reason, just out in the middle of nowhere. Again, I'm on this US Highway 287, but they do some unusual things here. So as we head down into the smaller areas again, but just a neat reflection here, showing again the wide open spaces we kind of have between the cities. And again, Arlington was simply just a suburb of Dallas, so I think it's out of camera view, but I think that's the power plant I was looking at over on the left. I don't know what this one is over on the right, maybe that's a substation. But anyway, so yeah, just wanted to get with you for another minute. I'll be back again in a second with some details. I'll show you guys what car I picked up here. Hang tight. Okay, we are back, guys, from our road trip. Of course, this is our next day. I got in too late to kind of detail what we had picked up, but had a good time. It was pretty uneventful. We got back in, actually I got back in probably around close to midnight from Fort Worth, Dallas area, just taking it easy with our acquisitions. So, and of course, these are the extra parts that we got with our abandoned car that we went and picked up. But here's the payoff right here. So for you that recognize these wheels, what we picked up was not a Corvette, but another equally unique car. Now I kind of teased this car, not this car, but I have another one that a friend of mine I helped him with, or I'm helping him with, and that would be a 68 model. This is a 66 model of the same car. This is a, for those of you that aren't familiar, and a lot of you are because I've seen these or grew up with them, this is a 66 Oldsmobile Tornado. Now this is a two-door luxury coupe, basically, that they came out with and spent many years actually designing and coming up with a powertrain for this. This is a 425 cubic inch big block Oldsmobile. I don't know if Oldsmobiles are referred to as big blocks. I think they are. 425 horse, 385 horsepower, lots, gobs of torque in a front wheel drive package. Now, this 66 is considered the most beautiful of all the Oldsmobile Tornadoes by many people. You know, other years have some really nice features and looks about them, but there's something about these cars, even me, when I look at this, it reminds me, for some reason, it reminds me of the helmets from Star Wars, or the looks of the design sets on the early Star Wars movies. It's almost like George Lucas had experiences with Tornadoes as a kid and grew up, and these look like a Darth Vader or a Star Wars car. So it's really kind of cool. There's a grill that goes here in the front. Now, these early first-year Tornadoes paid homage to the fact that this was the first front-wheel drive car that the United States production from the Cords in 1930s. So 66 was the first year they came back to, and it was very revolutionary for the time. But these have a Cord, the Cord 812s have the same exact design wheel on the car, and they also have this same grill right here. This grill that goes in the middle where this opening is right here. Of course, these have pop-up headlights, you know, as they're common for the day. There's even still a T3 headlight left in this one, which is an original headlight, by the way. There's a grill eyebrow that goes here. And of course, there's, if I can get this hood up, because these are heavy duty. Oh my God, it's heavy. There's our 425 engine, what's left of it. So the story of this car was that it was owned by a gentleman that had two of them, and he had restored one of them to a really cool show car configuration, and then he had this one, and sadly he passed away. This happens a lot, you know, guys. Even like me, they keep cars and then they pass away and the family has to deal with them. So the family wasn't quite sure to do with this one, and it's been sitting for a long time. 2000, well, no, it's funny, that's 1998, so it may have been 20 years, 22 years. But what's funny is this is actually, so they got a classic plate for it in 08. So anyway, it's been off the road since 1998 at least. And this was what they call the deluxe model Tornado. So it is equipped with everything that they had on the cars then. So it's got power steering, power brakes, power windows, tilt telecolumn, air conditioning, power seats. I mean, for 1966, this was an amazing amount of options that this came with. This one also is a very attractive, you can't really see now, it's actually called an autumn bronze with a bronze interior. So it's really, when it's done right, when it's repainted, it's a really pretty color. This car though, it suffered, like a lot of them do, from very poor storage. Now, interestingly enough, there's no rust hardly anywhere on this car. There's a few bubble spots in here that I'm gonna have to address. Sheet metal is really thick on this car, but you can see it's like a burnt orange, burgundy, autumn, you know, kind of a bronze with a bronze interior. But this thing is right now, guys, a biohazard. It's nasty. I don't even like getting inside here yet. Luckily, I'm an old army grunt, so I'm used to climbing around in the dirt and the crap. But I'm gonna take this thing to the car wash and just clean it out. I'm gonna cut the carpet out of it today, get that all out, and then kind of make an assessment. The rest of the engine supposedly is in the trunk of this car. And of course, I didn't have the keys, so I'm having to drill out the trunk lock. But you know, you can see this unique dash with the barrel speedometer, and the speedometer looks, I don't know, something's wrong with the dial on there, but it's all there. It's just very, very weathered because of sitting, you know. And a lot of times, again, you get cars that, while the gearheads, we appreciate them, the family doesn't quite know what to do with them, so they end up in this state. I did find the original protective plate in the middle of all that nastiness, and there's another dash piece that he'd bought for it, because obviously he was gonna start working on it. But it's a really neat, classy car, and because it's front wheel drive, there's no center hump in the middle there, so you can actually get in and out of it, or fit. I think you can actually fit 6 adults in this car. Another cool feature the deluxe models had was the back seat passengers had their own door handle to get out of the car. So there's 2 door handles. This door panel would be okay, except for this part here that got messed up from the sun exposure. But this I thought was kind of cool. I think that may be an accessory, that Oldsmobile vanity mirror that's on there. Thought that was funny. And then one other thing I think is kind of neat, just again reflection, the sign of the times back then, is the dual ashtrays for your passenger and driver in the car. And I think there's more ashtrays here in the back. Ugh. There we go. Yeah, so pretty cool, guys. It's a neat car. So this is what I ended up picking up. Like I said, I basically acquired this car. The car was really free, because what I paid for it is the value of even a couple of these extra headlight doors that were in the car. So this is fun. I'll get back to this one later. Right now I'm just going to clean it up and put it up for the moment until I get time to play with it. I've got the other projects, of course, you've seen that I'm burning through. So that's going to do it for us for this episode, and I'll check back with you guys this weekend. We'll see what's going on. Hang tight, guys. Thanks.